The border police are well versed in intercepting drug traffickers and deterring illegal immigration, serving as the nation's ultimate safeguard, dedicated to ensuring the safety of their fellow citizens. Nevertheless, two officers stumbled upon a profoundly poignant discovery within a bag, an unexpected twist in their duties. On that sweltering, humid evening along the Mexican border, with the sun sinking below the horizon, an infamous border zone where a nation known for its drug cartels, firearms, and criminal activities met with Texas and the United States. Vigilance was the order of the day for the border agents. Suspicious incidents could arise at any moment, and the contents of people's vehicles remained an enigma. The officers assigned to duty that night were Greg Marino and Gary Sanchez, a pair with a wealth of experience, having encountered firearms, kilos of narcotics, and even instances of human trafficking. However, the weekend held a revelation that defied their expectations, falling outside the realms of their usual encounters. Unlike the formal checkpoints found along the border, Marino and Sanchez were part of the unit responsible for patrolling the border's expanse, diligently halting any vehicles exhibiting dubious behavior attempting to cross over. As they drove along a road situated roughly 100 meters from the border, little did they know that just a few minutes away, a dark red Toyota carried three men making their way across the border. Having traveled for hours, they harbored hopes of eluding detection by the vigilant border agents. After crossing the border for a brief couple of minutes, they thought they had made it through, even starting to celebrate and thinking about what they would do with the money they were earning from transporting this carload. However, that's when they sensed officers were closing in on them. It was Greg Marino and Gary Sanchez, and the criminals could see their headlights in the distance. Neither of them wanted to be caught with what was in the car, so they panicked. One of the men grabbed a big black duffel bag and dropped it out of the window. It was still dark, so the officers didn't see the bag at the time. After dropping the bag, the men spun their car around and drove straight back in the direction they came from, giving up. By this time, officers were hot on their tail, and the big four-wheel drive of the Border Patrol pursued, but they had to stop giving chase when the fugitives crossed over into Mexico. They didn't have any authority over there, frustrating the officers. The officers traced the steps of the Toyota, looking for clues. Greg Marino had confiscated more than his fair share of illegal merchandise. He had found bags of cocaine, machine guns, and once more than $200,000. From experience, he knew that smugglers would often abandon things when they were chased away. But what he was about to find was a totally different kind of product that he had never seen before. In fact, he didn't even know if it had ever been smuggled over the border. Greg started retracing the car's tracks, steering the truck through the dark desert with the headlights beaming out ahead. As he slowly drove back to where they had first spotted the Toyota, he and his partner Gary scanned the landscape. They needed to find whatever evidence they could now. If they waited until daylight, it could be picked up again by other smugglers or even some of the animals in the area. Sometimes bags were found ripped to shreds, destroying any evidence that could link criminals to their crimes, but finding that evidence in the darkness wasn't going to be easy. They were on the lookout for something out of place, something that didn't belong, with just the car's headlights to guide their search. They would have to be sharp whenever they thought they had found something. They stopped and parked before realizing it was a brush or a shrub. But just as they were getting ready to call it a night and radio back to base, Gary spotted something in the distance. "What's that over there?" he said, pointing his finger way out in front to the right. Greg had seen the same thing just a fraction of a second after Gary and was already heading towards it. There was a group of bushes, but something was slightly poking out from the last one. It was rectangular in shape and big, long, and black. Greg stopped the truck with the engine still running, and they both jumped out to have a closer look. They had to be careful. Border agents had been targeted in the past with bombs and explosive devices. The two talked it over and decided that the incident was more likely a disposal than an attack, but they still approached with caution. Both Greg and Gary had their guns drawn and flashlights on, inching closer towards the bag. They didn't expect things to be this tense, but they were about to get even more unpredictable. When they were just a few feet away, the bag moved, rocking from side to side. "There's something inside," yelled Greg as they both took a step back, and as they did, the movement stopped. They kept walking forwards. It surely wasn't a bag of money. But what on earth was it? Could there be a person inside? No, it was too small. They knew they had to be brave. After all, it was their job. Finally, after what felt like 10 minutes, they reached the bag. The partners cautiously peered over to see if they could tell what was inside from their position, but the bag was closed. Greg moved his hands slowly towards the zipper and grabbed hold before sliding it open. They certainly weren't ready for what was inside. As Greg and Gary shined their flashlights inside the black bag at first, all they could see were stripes. There were waves of black, white, and light brown. On further inspection, it looked like hair. When they looked into the corner of the bag, that's when they realized. Tucked into a ball and pressed up against the bag's lining was a head with fangs, a big tongue, and bright yellow-green eyes. The two officers jumped back in surprise when they understood what was lying underneath them, right at their feet. One of the deadliest animals in the world had been left in a duffel bag by the side of the road for them to find. This definitely wasn't a normal day at the office. The animal wasn't fully grown, otherwise it wouldn't have fit into the bag. In fact, it was so small that it must have still been a cub, but that didn't make it any less frightening. The sharp claws, teeth, and powerful legs already looked strong enough to rip them apart. It was a tiger. That's when Greg decided to call for backup. They certainly were not trained for this kind of situation and were already out of their depth. Luckily, though, the animal wasn't moving around much. That's when Greg started to feel concerned. It was a beautiful animal, and he was hoping that it wasn't dying. They waited by its side for almost an hour until their unit could get hold of specialists. When the second truck arrived, there was a veteran and a doctor with all of their medical supplies. Following several examinations of the tiger's pupils and continuous monitoring of its heart rate, the veterinarian informed the officers that the cub had likely been sedated. In addition, he elaborated on the expanding market for exotic animals, emphasizing that Mexico had become a prime destination for those with the means to acquire trafficked creatures, ranging from rare turtles and snakes to iguanas and crocodiles. Realizing the urgency of the situation, the veterinarian stressed the need for swift action to ensure the tiger's survival. With a sense of urgency, they hurried back to the veterinarian's headquarters. Indeed, the vet's assessment proved accurate. The cub had only been sedated. Now, the critical question was where to relocate it. After making several inquiries, the officers determined that the most suitable destination was likely the renowned Brownsville Glades Porter Zoo in Texas, celebrated for its commitment to animal welfare and conservation. As a tribute to the rescue that occurred on Mexico's Dia del Niño, a holiday for children, the zoo decided to name the tiger Nino. Months later, when Greg and Gary paid a visit to the zoo, they were overjoyed to see that little Nino appeared healthy and content. The outcome could have been vastly different if not for the courageous Border Patrol agents who risked their lives. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. Also share, subscribe, and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.